Hello everyone, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nub Raids, and in today's video, I want to show you my Ice Golem team for normal stage 25, where I was only allowed to use epic champions from the Sylvan Watcher faction. Right, it's part of the faction games organized by Deadwood Jedi. The run isn't super short, so let's just click start. Let's just dive right into it, and I'll talk you through it. Um, yeah, and I'll also try not to spoil the stream. I will say that stream was absolutely fantastic. And when you're watching this as well, the Fire Night event, which I'm also in with Epic only Sylvan Watchers, should be out as well. It's going to be on Tuesday, kind of later in the day. Check out Deadwood Jedi's channel for more info on that, and deadwoodjedi.com for all the info on like the event so far. But yeah, when you come in, honestly, to these stage 25 dungeons, I mean, immediately you can see it right away. Being able to kill these waves quickly becomes really difficult when it's epics only, right? Seer composition obviously would be one way to do it, bringing in a seer, but she's only for the orcs. And, you know, there's a decent bit of setup that's needed for that as well. For most other factions, these waves are actually quite tricky. It's not the easiest thing in the world. They are tanky, as you can see right there. They do hit pretty hard too. So you sort of have to balance this stuff out. You know, forget about the boss. How do we get through these waves? What do we do to deal with them? So for example, this wave right here, these seekers, they come in, and when you crit them, they put increased defense on everyone. So when I did this before, on my own account, obviously, I used Poison Explosion to get through these waves. And Poison doesn't care about your defense, so that wasn't a problem. Or Seer rips the buffs off and one-shots them, so it's not even a problem. But for a more normal team, it absolutely is a problem. It's a massive problem. So we actually used a level 50 Lockwayne with almost no gear, because he can strip one buff off with his AoE, and that actually ended up being quite helpful to get through. We have a bit of poison damage from Ornn, but he's the wrong affinity, so it's a bit unreliable. It's Mistrider Dahi who is doing most of the work. We then have one of the newest epics in the game, Creodan the Blue, and he is pumping out those AoE freezes, which is locking down what these waves can do. It's another huge problem, actually. There are some epics that you can do it with, so I'd say one of the best ones, he's the former mascot of the channel, would be Archmage Helmet. You get him from Doom Tower, normal, secret rooms, fairly early on, and he has an AoE stun with a 3-turn cooldown, so he's very strong. Still of the Drakes is another classic that people get pretty early on, the login reward for 6 months playing an legendary. She has an AoE stun. So those champions can often form the backbone of trying to get through these difficult waves where there's so much damage coming at you, you need to stop them taking a turn or doing something. We used Creodan for the AoE freeze. Let me just jump ahead then. That's enough talk about the waves, because we're at the boss. When it comes to this boss, Ice Golem is such a pain to deal with, because it's very frustrating to me, continually so, that they never added a way for this to be displayed in on. He didn't die. He's supposed to die. He got weak hicks. He's the positive affinity. They don't show clearly on this health bar where these points are. Like, there it is, the Frigid Vengeance. We survived because the ads were dead, and that's fine. But this Frigid Vengeance not showing up on this bar, to me, is absolutely brutal. I don't get why that is a thing. You just have to sort of guess and know. Like, where is it over here? 80, 60, 45, 30, 15% HP. Like, it's quite difficult to actually judge exactly where those are. But when he hits those thresholds, he does that counterattack. It hits really hard. This is going to wipe us, for instance. There we go. There's a wipe. Bam. We didn't see that in the faction games. But that gives you an idea of how the team works. If you want to see a successful run, watch the faction games. But I told you, and I said in the stream, I kept saying, man, this team can wipe. There are problems, and I don't think people quite copped on. But this is just always going to be a problem with this boss, is building a team where you don't have that small, tiny chance of failure. Like, if I jump over to Fire Knight Hard, right? We had, by the way, a player power cap, which is why I couldn't use him. So if I come all the way down here, excuse me, for Ice Golem Hard, this team won't work, so I've taken gear off these champs on the test server. But for Ice Golem Hard, you can see I've got a similar sort of team idea. We place up buffs on the wave. Seer kills them all in one shot. Renegade resets for wave 2. Then we we do it all again. We buff up on seer one shots. We get to the boss. These champions die, and then I've got Elva and Artak continue the fight. But there's always that tiny chance of failure because Artak, all of his attacks are AoE, right? Everything is an AoE hit. So even if you build him with 0 damage, like he just tickles the boss, there's always the possibility that he's just 0.1% off triggering a counterattack. He triggers the counterattack and your team gets wiped. And there's nothing you can do about it. It's just a problem with this boss. There's nearly always a chance of failure. It's very difficult to build teams that will, on auto especially, in good time, do it totally consistently. So yeah, I thought that was another sort of fun thing to point out. But let me show you this team again. You can see we did successful runs on Deadwood's stream, so you can see successful runs there if you want to see them. But this would give you the idea of the team. Would I recommend this team? Obviously not. So for example, my Celiac Priest Orin, he's coming in an Affinity Breaker, changing those weak hits to critical hits. This is obviously really inconsistent, and he's missing some gear because the player power limit. So this is not something that you would want to do, but I thought it was interesting to see that an Affinity Breaker set massively up the speed. I can tell you right now that this reduced the speed of the run by over 1 minute. It made it so much faster. That is the effect that this can have. So if you are progressing through the game and you have really bad affinities on some champions, you get some Affinity Breaker, even if it's not the best, from Doom Tower Normal. Forge up those sets. Like, don't sleep on those sets. You get some good gear. It could actually be super helpful. This got buffed and recently-ish, and I think people don't really give it any thought or any credit, and you just sort of wait till you get a good affinity champion. Like, you can choose it to an extent. It's not something you'd want for farming, doing something repeatedly, but for just getting through something once, this could be fantastic. So Affinity Breaker, it's actually the first time I've ever used it, and it was really good in this for that. But yeah, obviously you'd prefer a good affinity poisoner. So for example, we were up against Senda Plays, and he brought in, to massive effect, Venomage, who came in with the AoE poison, and it's 100% chance for Venomage for the 2 poisons with the right affinity. So for this level of Ice Golem, much, much better, right? Venomage. So yeah, that's, something to look out for. But an interesting workaround with Affinity Breaker. But yeah, Creed and the Blue, we had him built for pure damage. This is a terrible build for normal. Normally, this is a crowd control champion, right? You want him running fast, boosting your speed, pumping out freezes, especially for Fire Knight Hard, where that's relevant. But we had him just built for damage because it's hard to get his attack high with 1,000 base attack. It's very silly. We built him for damage because we just wanted to get through the waves quickly, and we want him to actually die pretty quickly too. So we can't have him be tanky. And yeah, we actually want to kind of limit the freezes too. The waves aren't that fast, so we want to stop them killing us, but we don't want to keep freezing them because it reduces the damage that you deal. Then we had Mistrider Dahi. He's our actual damage in lethal and cruel, so he was coming in like this. Yeah, we maybe could have actually given him the. Yeah, we could have ditched Methodical, and we could have given him Opportunist. That might have actually been better than Cycle of Violence. Now I think about it. That might have been good, right? But we didn't. Too late now. Too late now. It's over. So yeah, he's just in there, right? He gives himself increased attack, which is huge. This is so good. I would genuinely recommend Mistrider Dahi to everyone. I feel like this is basically a must-build champion. He boosts his own attack and accuracy, so you can build low accuracy. His attack is going to be boosted. You don't need an increased attack champion for him. Gets an extra turn. Then he's AoE decreased defense. Extra turn if he places this debuff on all enemies. That's great. Then his A1 has a chance for an extra turn as well. So he can just pop off and get lots of extra turns and really speed up your runs very randomly. But it's just, increase attack, increase accuracy, AoE decrease defense. What is not to love with extra turns everywhere? Champion is so strong. He even has a nice aura as well. It's just brilliant. Talked about Lockwayne. He was in a bit of a meme build. He's just in there for this. Revelation. 100% chance to remove 1 random buff. And then he was in there to die and tank hits, which I thought was quite fun. And yeah, then another sort of secret weapon, I suppose, was White Dryad Nia. She's giving us tons of healing. I did try to run her in a Reflex set. She's in Regen and Immortal. I tried to run her in Reflex to get as much out of this move, which is reducing cooldowns, as possible. So the idea was that she'd reduce cooldowns on Dahi on the waves. Then when Dahi was dead, she'd reduce cooldowns on Ornn, and he could pump out poisons. That was the theory. She's very random on auto. Like, she just Sometimes she just heals herself when she's basically full health. And it's like, okay, why would you do that? That makes no sense. One little trick I found was having her with enough resistance for the boss and the boss minions that she could come in, resist the boss and boss minions. She's actually a bit low. We needed the area bonuses to help with that, I think. And then Ornn would not have any resistance. He would get debuffed, and she would then try to cleanse his debuff. So that would make it a bit more consistent. She'd be trying to cleanse him and not healing herself, which we do not want. But yeah, if this goes well, this can, again, really speed up your runs. But it's quite tricky. There's a lot of trickiness to getting her to target the right champion. This would work great in something like Hydra, where you can choose on manual where to put it. But if you want it full auto, that becomes a lot harder. She does have the AoE decrease speed. We didn't really use this at all. Then the ally protection and strengthen. I use this a bit on the waves, but not too much. Yeah, again, I tried her in reflex and it didn't work. For whatever reason, just having her with regen and doing more healing, it made the waves more consistent. I just found when I took her out of that it was quite easy for, for someone to die in the waves. And in fact, Creedan and Lockqueen were so tricky. If we missed some freezes and they both died, which is quite easy to happen, and like the Seekers could provoke him, and we couldn't remove the provoke on auto, so then he would miss his crowd control, and then they'd all be getting turns, and he would die. Then if Dahi died, suddenly you're on the waves with just Ornn and Nia, and we could get through, but it would take like 3 or 4 minutes to get through wave 2. So I decided, actually, it's not worth the risk of running reflex for the sake of the tournament, where you've got 3 attempts. I'd rather have her in regen, which is going to be a bit slower, but it'll be way, way, way more consistent for whatever reason. Just this passive and healing up everybody else. And also, I thought, healing her up more is going to make her heal herself. That's what I found with reflex as well, was that because she wasn't going to heal herself, she had to heal herself with her A2. That was something that she would have to do. So it sort of wasted the reflex procs too. But yeah, she's coming in these sort of stats. So we didn't have speed very high for any of this. Lower than I'd recommend, generally speaking, just because we needed poison to do the job. So we didn't want to go super fast. We kind of need the boss taking turns. Yeah, these sort of masteries. Actually, I tweaked this. She didn't have War Master at the time. I've already been rebuilding slightly. That's why she's low on resistance. She had Unshakable, so in the defense tree. I've already tweaked some builds a little bit, preparing for. Have I tweaked him already? No, I haven't. I've been tweaking some builds, preparing for Fire Knight already. But look, there you go. That was the team for Ice Golem. I thought it was, again, a really fun challenge to come in and have to beat what is actually, as you can clearly see, a very difficult dungeon. Oh, yeah, I'm over the team power now. Funny, because I've re-geared people a little bit. That's fine. Very, very difficult dungeon to get through and take down. Yeah, it's tough stuff. It is tough. So, hey, look, hopefully it was an interesting thing, gave you some ideas. Like, for me, what are my biggest takeaways from this, for me, personally? Personally, for me, I really enjoyed the White Dryad Nia duo with somebody, where she's healing herself with regen and enough resistance to not get debuffed. And then she can just keep topping them up and reducing their skills. I think that's a very powerful duo. That'd be a fun one to explore for other dungeons as well. And then I was also very impressed by Affinity Breaker as a sort of like desperate option to get through. It's very random, but it can get you through. So there you are. And also Creedan is a great epic for AoE crowd control. They're my two big takeaways. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.